Good morning, Rabbi in the kitchen. It's still Chanukah for the next couple of days, and the last time I did a cooking video on Chanukah, it was for a fish mole, and it was amazing. It was spicy, it was delicious. You should definitely check out that recipe, but I wouldn't be the rabbi in the kitchen on Chanukah if I didn't make latkes. So here it goes. If you're gonna make latkes, you're gonna be grating stuff. You're gonna be grating onions, potatoes, and there are a couple of ways you could do it. If you want, you can use one of these. It'll take a whole lot longer, and you might get a couple of little red badges of courage on your fingers as you do it. It'll be a real labor of love, and it'll come out delicious. Or if you're just doing it on a budget and you don't have a food processor in your kitchen. If you have a food processor, it'll still come out delicious, and it'll take a lot less time, and you'll be able to make them for breakfast like I'm about to now. Now, as you grate your onions and potatoes, there are a couple of ways you could do it. You can use one of these, throw everything inside. You can do more at once, and it'll come out really wonderfully. Or you can use this attachment if you want it to come out a little bit stringier. It'll look a little bit more like a hash brown, and it'll be a little bit easier to squeeze out the liquids when we get to that part. But either way, you still have a good batch of latkes. These are all of our ingredients. We've got 10 potatoes, 2 large onions, some olive oil, black pepper, salt, some flour. I'm using spelt flour because of my daughter, and 2 eggs. I don't want to transfer the potato onion mixture into a mixing bowl just yet, although we are going to get to that. We're going to have to drain it at some point. And so, we've got a colander, and we've got one of my favorite pieces of cooking equipment, something that used to be a white undershirt. Cut up the sides so that can catch all kinds of foods that are good for straining, like in this case the potatoes and the onions. It's also good to have these around for things like if you ever want to make your own tofu, your own Indian cheese, paneer, if you ever want to make cholent rice. These things are very, very useful to have in the kitchen. So we're going to spread this over the colander. That's the first 4 potatoes and the first onion. We're going to do the rest of them now. 6 potatoes, 1 more onion. So a lot of people don't like to squeeze out the onion potato mixture because of there being so many minerals in the potatoes that would be lost that way, and so much of the onion flavor would be lost that way. But the truth is, if you really want these latkes to come out not oily, not greasy, and still have really good taste of onion and potato, you gotta get rid of a lot of this liquid. It'll help them fry better. And we're going to retain some of the liquid for just the same reasons that a lot of people like not to squeeze. One of the biggest complaints that people who think they don't like latkes have about latkes is that they're just too oily. That mistake comes from, like I said, not getting rid of the liquid, for one, and for another, floating them in the oil. You don't ever float your latkes in oil. When we actually finally put the batter into the skillet, you'll see how much oil we need to use. Alright, the potatoes and the onions have been sufficiently ground and squeezed. Now they're being released into a mixing bowl. If you thought you might be able to do the whole thing in the food processor, I'm sorry, but don't worry. This will not take too long, and it'll actually give you the sense that you've actually cooked something. 2 eggs. No blood. No blood. 3/4 of a cup of flour. Some salt. Some pepper. and mix it up. I'd say that the eggs, the flour, and the onions are really what differentiate latkes from hash browns. The flour and the eggs will also help bind these things together. And the better the held they are together, the more self-contained they are, the more dense they are, the less likely they are to absorb too much oil taste. And you won't end up with oily latkes. Just keep stirring until you can't see any more flour. I've got 2 skillets heating up now on sort of a high-medium flame. Okay, so now the skillets are hot enough that the drop of water immediately disappears, but not quite so hot that it bounces around. So we're going to use olive oil. Enough to cover the bottom of the pan well. Yeah, it's already starting some bubbles. This is pretty hot oil here. I want to reduce the flame a bit. Same for the other skillet. I've got 2 of them going. So you really want enough oil, like I said, to cover the bottoms of the pans well. Should see a little bit of oil kind of sloshing around in there, but you don't want to. You do not want to deep fry this. You do not want an inch of oil floating around in your pan. Maybe just, I'd say maybe a tablespoon. Don't measure much when I'm cooking. All right, so I'm gonna wet my hands. And start making some patties. Whoop, a little bit of water dripped into the pan there. Put that in the oil. About that much of the potato dough. Take a ball, flatten it with your hands. It'll come out nice, round enough. Well, if it starts to crack, you might want to turn it back into a ball. Squash it flat, make a patty, throw it in. Another one there. So I've got 4 going in this skillet, and I'm going to have some more going in the other one now. So these latkes have a couple of eggs in the batter. You can easily do it without the eggs if you want them to come out a little bit more dense, or if you're vegan and you don't want any eggs in your batter. Alright, so the latkes in this skillet were definitely ready to flip over. There's less oil in this one. In this one, I flipped one over and I saw a little bit too much oil on one side, so I turned up the flame. I'm going to check the others. Are these ready? Not quite. A little more time. But I see some nice browning around the edge of this one right here. That one was definitely ready to go. Squeak. Nice and flipped. These are probably ready. Very, very dark in the middle, not so much around the edges. Probably need to be flipped over and pressed against the skillet a bit. More latkes frying in the pan. More latkes frying in both pans. We've got some over here on the plate that are ready, and a layer of paper towel in between the layers to catch whatever excess oil there might be. There it is, plate of latkes. Happy Chanukah.